There's this central, really confusing emotional block that can happen later in life. It's the moment you realize your social network is shrinking, and suddenly the effort it takes to make just one new close friend, well, it feels overwhelmingly difficult, almost paralyzing. It's such a strange paradox, isn't it? You might have more time and maybe even a deeper desire for connection, but the path to new friendships feels steeper than ever. In this explainer, we're going to dig into why that is, and more importantly, we're going to lay out a clear, structured path for what we can do about it.
Just let that idea sit with you for a second. This isn't about a lack of desire, and it is definitely not because you've forgotten how to be a good friend. It's that the starting line for a new connection just feels like you're at the bottom of a huge mountain, looking up, and you're just not sure you have the energy for that first step. If that feeling resonates with you at all, please know you are absolutely not alone. This is a really common, though pretty rarely discussed experience.
So what is this feeling? You know, this sense of being stuck, wanting connection, but feeling kind of frozen when it's time to actually do something. Well, psychologists have given it a name, and that's always the first step toward understanding and, overcoming it. They call it friendship paralysis.
The term we're going to use here is friendship inertia. It's just like in physics, It's a kind of social inertia, this really powerful psychological resistance to just getting started. And it's fueled by two big things: the perceived high cost and the risk of vulnerability. Now, the cost isn't money. It's the cost of your energy, your time, your emotional bandwidth. It just feels like it takes so much work to build a shared history from zero. And the risk? Well, that's that deep human fear of rejection. Opening yourself up to someone new, showing parts of who you are without knowing if they'll be accepted, that can feel incredibly daunting. By giving this a name, we can stop seeing it as some sort of personal failing and start seeing it as a recognized phenomenon we can actually work with.
Okay, so we've put a name to the what, friendship inertia. Now we really need to understand the why. Why does it feel so much harder now than it might have in our 20s or our 40s? The answer isn't that you've changed for the worse. It's that your psychological priorities have actually shifted, and in a very wise and natural way.
So, the key to understanding this is a concept called socio-emotional selectivity theory, or SST for short, and it's a fascinating idea. It basically says that as our perspective on time changes, our brains naturally pivot. We stop focusing so much on endlessly expanding our networks for the future, and we start focusing on maximizing positive emotional experiences right now, in the present. This means we naturally gravitate toward the people we already know and trust, the relationships that are comfortable, predictable, and emotionally rewarding. It's a brilliant protective mechanism, really, but it has this one unintended side effect. It makes us super resistant to the emotional gamble of meeting someone new. That gamble just doesn't feel worth the risk when you've already got your trusted circle. It's a great strategy for deepening existing bonds, but it can accidentally close the door to new ones.
And this right here perfectly illustrates the other huge shift. For most of our lives, friendship was just a byproduct of our environment. I mean, think back. At school, at work, when you were raising kids, you were constantly in situations with recurring, unavoidable contact. This is what we call situational proximity. You didn't have to try to see the same people every day, it just happened. And out of that sheer repetition, friendships would just bloom. But now, for many of us, that built-in structure is gone. Friendship is no longer a happy accident. It now requires intentional proximity, a deliberate, chosen effort to create that repetition. And that shift from passive to active is exactly what feels so incredibly hard.
Okay, so this brings us to the core lesson of this entire explainer. And I mean it. If you can really grasp this next idea, it reframes the whole challenge. It turns what feels like an emotional barrier into a practical, manageable project.
This is it. This is the key. Friendship isn't just a feeling that strikes like lightning. It's a habit built on proximity. It grows out of shared experiences over time. It's the little bit of small talk before a meeting starts, the wave in the hallway, the shared complaint about the traffic. These tiny, repeated interactions, they're like the soil from which a deep connection grows. So when that situational proximity disappears, we feel lost because the soil is gone. The solution, then, isn't to try harder to make a friend in one big conversation. The solution is to rebuild the soil. So if we need to rebuild that soil, how do we actually do it? Well, we use a system, and that system is the proximity protocol. Just look at the words here: structured, intentionally creating, predictable, and low stakes.
This isn't about forcing a friendship or trying to be someone you're not. It's about creating the perfect conditions for a connection to emerge naturally, just like it used to at work or school. But this time, you get to be the architect of the situation. The protocol has 3 simple but really powerful pillars. First up is the intentional proximity mandate. This just means you have to show up somewhere repeatedly on a schedule. Next, there's the shared purpose filter. This means the gathering needs to be about an activity, not just vaguely about socializing. This gives you something to talk about that isn't deeply personal right off the bat. And third, you have the time-bound vulnerability rule. This is how you manage the risk, by keeping your initial commitment small and well-defined. Together, these 3 steps work to dismantle the very things that fuel that feeling of friendship inertia.
Okay, theory is great, but let's make this real. How do you actually apply the proximity protocol in your life? Maybe starting this week. This next section is all about the practical, concrete steps you can take to put this system into action safely and effectively.
The very first step is to find your third place. This is a classic idea in sociology. Home is your first place, work was your second. A third place is just a neutral public space where people gather. The crucial part is that it has to be structured and recurring. So look at these examples. A walking club that meets every Tuesday morning, a book group on the first Thursday of every month, a volunteer shift every single Friday. See? The activity provides the shared purpose, and the schedule provides the repetition. This is where you're going to build your new habit of proximity.
Now, once you get there, the pressure can feel huge. You might be thinking, oh gosh, I have to have a deep, meaningful conversation. No, you don't. This is the 10-minute vulnerability rule. Your only goal is to have a pleasant, low-stakes 10-minute conversation with someone. That's it. Anyone can do 10 minutes, right? It just lowers the bar for engagement, makes it feel totally manageable, and it drastically reduces that feeling of high cost we talked about. It's just a brief, friendly exchange, not a lifelong commitment interview.
And what on earth do you talk about in those 10 minutes? Easy. You use the shared purpose question. The question, so what do you do, can feel like a high-stakes job interview. It asks people to kind of summarize their entire life's value in one sentence. But a shared purpose question, well, it's grounded in the present moment, in the activity you both chose to be at. It's such an easy, open door to a conversation that feels natural and relevant, not like some kind of interrogation. It's a really simple shift in language that makes a world of difference. Okay, this might be the most important practical step of all. Commit to the 3 repetition rule. You have to attend your new chosen activity at least 3 times before you decide if it's for you. The first time will feel awkward. That's totally normal. The second time, faces start to look familiar. And by the third time, you're starting to feel like a regular. You're building a tiny shared history, even in a small way. Psychologists call this the mere exposure effect. We just naturally develop a preference for things simply because we're familiar with them. Giving up after one try is like planting a seed and then getting upset there isn't a tree the next day. You have to give proximity time to work its magic.
Now, as we're doing this work, it's so important to remember the profound why behind it all. This isn't just about passing the time or feeling a little less lonely. Putting in this kind of structured effort to build connection is genuinely one of the most powerful things you can do for your long-term health and your well-being.
And let's just pause for a second to really let this sink in. The feeling of friendship inertia is a normal, predictable psychological barrier. It is not a character flaw. It is not a sign that you are broken or unlikable. It is a feature of how our brains adapt as we age. And because it's a structural problem, it responds beautifully to a structural solution. You are absolutely capable of overcoming this.
And honestly, the stakes are pretty high. Research consistently shows a powerful link between social connection and cognitive health. As this chart shows, high levels of social connection are directly correlated with higher cognitive resilience. Every single time you go to that book club or that walking group, you are actively investing in your brain. You're building new neural pathways, you're reducing stress, and you're creating a buffer against cognitive decline. Think of it this way. That small effort it takes to get out the door is a direct and powerful investment in your future health and happiness. So, we've explored the problem, the psychology behind it, and a clear structured solution. Now, let's bring it all together into a single, gentle challenge, a commitment you can make to yourself just for the next 3 weeks.
When it all comes down to it, it's this simple. The barrier is friendship inertia, that powerful resistance we feel. The solution is the proximity protocol. It's not about trying harder or being more charming. It's about building a system that uses intentional, predictable repetition to create the conditions for friendship to grow all by itself. So here it is, the gentle challenge. Before you move on with your day, just take a moment. First, identify one, not five, just one, new, structured, reoccurring activity that sounds even mildly interesting. Second, take out your phone or calendar and put the date and time of the very next meeting in it. Make it real. And third, just make a quiet promise to yourself to attend for 3 consecutive weeks, no matter what. That's it. That is the first step to putting the proximity protocol into action in your life.
So as we close out, remember, first and foremost, that this difficulty you might feel in making new friends is a normal psychological resistance to vulnerability. It is not a personal failing. The most powerful insight to take away from all this is the proximity protocol. That simple but profound idea that you can use scheduled, recurring activities to intentionally build the shared history that all friendships are made of. And maybe just hold on to this one reassuring thought. By committing to small, consistent social effort, you can and you will overcome this inertia and build a supportive, vital network for the years ahead. You're simply creating the conditions for connection to find you.